Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Daily. We are back. We're not in California anymore. We're back into the friendly confines. And Berm and I are talking about everything that has been going on for these Ohio State Buckeyes, mainly on the offensive line during a busy week of roster management. Berm, first of all, you made it through a flight. Everyone was very worried about you.
Yeah,
And
it was
especially
weird.
when the delays popped up.
No, it was weird
But you made it.
because in your entire life, let's just start here before we dive into the offensive line quagmire that is now the next 5 months for Ohio State. How many times in your life do you remember the FAA grounding all flights in the United States? Because I can remember one time,
I
and
think
that
of
day
one
was
pretty,
right.
a pretty high-profile day.
That's what I'm saying. That was a pretty bad day. So when I get up at 2:30 in the morning Pacific Standard Time, get to the airport, and I'm like, okay, feeling calm. I was fortunate to not fly out yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Tuesday when you did, when the weather was all funky. Like I got a good weather day to fly out. I'm thinking, hey, way to go. And then I'm like, what is going on? So like we got to the airport and immediately I started looking for hotels to stay back another day because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. They're not saying why yet all the systems went down. Who cares? I made it. We're on to Cincinnati. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Sunday night in Cincinnati, a big one in the jungle. Yeah, it was pretty bumpy coming back. I had a great time out there with everyone in the crew, but I'm ready to be back in Columbus for just a bit. Then we'll hit the road, maybe work on some other projects moving forward. I'm interested in the word that you chose to describe the Ohio State offensive line situation. Why do you view it as a quagmire?
Because there's a lot of different ways this can go from here. We have seen DeJuan Jones enter the draft. We've seen Paris Johnson enter the draft. We knew that was going to happen at some point this week.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Luke Whippler entering the draft was a surprise to us. And I don't know that it really should be. I think Luke is probably getting back a second round grade, and it's hard to say no to that. He's a center. You're not going to find many first round centers. But I also could see him sneaking into the late first round if a team really needs a center. So you can't expect him to walk away from that opportunity. And then you get the good news that Matthew Jones is officially coming back for his 6th year. And Matthew Jones's return changes the way everything can go from here for the rest of the guys on the team, because Matthew was the number 1 rated center in the country in the class of 2018 when he came out of high school, out of Erasmus Hall in Brooklyn. So the question is now, does he slide to center? And that allows you to have Enoch Vamahi and Donovan Jackson at guard, because Enoch's in his 4th year, and at some point you need to get him on the field, which moves Josh Fryer, and I guess we're looking probably heading into spring at Zen Mahalski and Josh Fryer as your tackles. But there's a lot of things that are still playing around with, because I know the staff is extremely confident in Jacob James at center. Carson Hinsman, the freshman from Wisconsin, had a really great first year, changed his body. Tegra Shabola looks like a guy that has worked himself into the 2 deep last year. Does he get a spot or an opportunity to play left tackle? You just don't know where they go from here.
Yeah, I don't think that it's weird how I view it, which I don't think it's a major problem, because I thought that Ohio State was most likely going to lose 3 out of 5 anyway. Now, Luke Whippler and Matthew Jones flip-flopped from what I anticipated, and I would have certainly through most of the year evaluated Luke Whippler as being more critical and more valuable to Ohio State's success moving forward, and that, well, they could be fine as long as they're building with those 2 guys in the middle. But now that the season's over, knowing some of the health, things that Matthew Jones worked through and the way he played in spite of it late in the year, and the versatility that you mentioned with him being able to play guard or slide into center, I think that helps solve some of that conundrum for Ohio State. Now, there is a left tackle void that we're going to have to talk about, and Ohio State is going to have to address. We've mentioned several times that that's a high priority for Ohio State in the transfer portal. The window for that is starting to get closed, where maybe they have to kick that down the road to the May transfer portal opening and closing. I don't know that that's necessarily ideal or what I would have suggested that Ohio State would do, although we've heard from people inside the program that in relation to other positions, namely corner, well, that's okay. You can wait if you get a veteran player in May, and in the meantime, the short-term benefit is that younger guys get a ton of reps. So if we're talking specifically about Ohio State, as you mentioned, Zen Mahalski, that comes front of mind immediately. He gets 5-6 extra reps a day, maybe that helps him take the next step and it's meaningful by August or September or a year from now. Who knows? But Matthew Jones is way more important coming back than I ever would have imagined. That's a tribute to him and the work that he's done and a tribute to his versatility, because if Jacob James is ready, well, guess what? You can let Matthew Jones stay at guard. If they determine that Matthew Jones is better off at center, then you have Enoch Vamahi in there. You can evaluate multiple guys in multiple spots, and you piece that together. And I think that's pretty clear from left guard to right tackle. Like, they have enough pieces to maneuver that through. And I'm just not – I think the marquee left tackle spot, there's probably not a solution right now on the roster, and maybe not even in the portal currently.
Yeah, I don't think there's a guy that you could immediately shift to that spot. But again, as you're talking about with Matthew Jones, if Jacob James is good enough to take over the center spot, which again, there's a lot of confidence in Jacob, and you can keep Matthew Jones at guard, and you can potentially do what we've talked about with Bill in other instances, and that could be a potential move to tackle for Donovan Jackson, who was the number one ranked offensive lineman in the country coming out of the class of 2021. So you have versatility there. He's not your prototypical body for a left tackle, but he played it in high school, and he was the number one ranked player in the country in the all offensive line positions in his class. So you know that he's got versatility and the hands and stuff to play out there. Now, the question is, obviously, is that ideal for Donovan and his NFL future? Probably not. He's going to be likely an interior guy at the next level, but you never know. Showing that he can play all 5 spots is a way to boost your draft stock. So, yeah, it is interesting that Matthew Jones has become now this key cog that we weren't even anticipating, but everything sort of revolves around him. And it is huge for guys like Josh Fryer, Anzen Mahalski, and Tegra Shabola to get those reps this spring. And, Walter Rouse, the offensive tackle from Stanford, who is in the transfer portal, has not made a decision anywhere. He had an offseason surgery that's going to sideline him through the spring. So Ohio State is still at least on the periphery with him. And the reality is, it's Ohio State football. There are going to be players around the country. Maybe they're in the 2 deep at Alabama or Georgia or anywhere else, LSU, and say, hey, you know what? Ohio State needs a starting left tackle. I can just, why would I not put my name in the portal and see if they're interested? So this is the new world of college football, and it's something Ohio State's going to definitely have to play with at that spot, because if Zen Mahalski or Josh Fryer or Grant Toutant or Trey LaRue or any of these guys that are on the roster can't prove that they deserve to start, Ohio State's not going to be reluctant to find someone else who is.
Yeah, and I know that the devil's advocate position as well. If you can't get somebody in for March and April, how can you be ready to count on them? They need that time to learn the scheme. They need time to get familiar. They need to be on campus. I think 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was probably way more true than it is now. The NCAA, for whatever rules it does or doesn't enforce, has been much more hands-off when it comes to summer workouts and not having to cut corners by using tennis balls, and like sometimes you can actually touch a real football now.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And meeting with coaches. So
are you allowed to buy a hamburger for someone though?
I don't think you can put cream cheese on it, but
gross.
Or maybe that's a bagel. Maybe it's both. Probably can't put cream cheese on either one.
Schmear.
Yeah, that's right. Boy, we've been making that joke for way too long. The point is that Ohio State's not talking about getting somebody who's played one freshman year somewhere else and then going in. They're inexperienced in all phases and all facets of college football. The people that they would be looking at are proven starters at the Power 5 level who, whether they've graduated or not, they've played multiple years of football. They're going to understand the system and have plenty of time to learn it, even if they don't show up till May. But if you're talking about Walter Rouse, I mean, he's in the portal currently. Even if he's injured, he could still be on campus now. But, I don't think that it's such a big deal. You'd have May, June, July, and then, 25 practices in August to get up to speed. You'd love to still have the 15. That's why we're saying they're significant for the younger guys. But my point for cornerback or left tackle, if that's what Ohio State does wind up doing, which we think they will in the transfer portal, that doesn't rule them out or leave them as behind as they would have been before the NCAA lightened up a little bit when it came to summer workouts.
Yeah, and again, you have 4 incoming freshmen who enrolled this week with Luke Montgomery and Miles Walker at potentially at tackle. So you do have some help there, at least to push the depth and get an opportunity to see what they can do. You never want to have to start a left tackle who's a freshman or a right tackle who's a freshman, but it's a weird world we're living in, and Ohio State has guys who are there that are going to push the other guys, and make them be ready to go. I think the most interesting thing is that Justin Fry did a really, I mean, let's call a spade, did a really damn good job with the offensive line this year. And I just can't imagine how frustrating it has to be for Ohio State to have offered 5 different offensive tackles in the transfer portal and to lose them to Tennessee and to USC and to Oregon. When you have a wide open vacancy, I can't imagine that was something that they believed was a possibility heading into January. So
Right.
it's just another one of these, barometers like, hey, things are really different right now, and you better find a way to fix it, because there's a number of ways that guys are getting out of your reach, and you got to find some way to make it worth their while. And if starting with left tackle at Ohio State isn't like an immediate, oh, that's an opportunity I want, that's shocking to me.
Yeah, especially, I mean, maybe there were people that didn't listen to Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones both say we're going to be playing in the NFL next year. DeJuan especially did that a couple times, talking to him on Freaky Friday, where he just straight out said it, that he wasn't coming back. Like,
Yeah.
maybe they didn't know, maybe they didn't believe it, that both of those tackles were going to be gone. That's almost the only explanation that can come into my brain, because now they were going to have 3 guys drafted regardless. Could have been 4 if Matthew Jones left, or Luke Whippler if they'd traded places or whatever else. Those Paris Johnson is going to go off the board probably in the first 10 picks. He's going to be a first rounder. DeJuan Jones could be, probably won't be. I think probably second or third round. As you said, we don't know exactly what the feedback was for Luke Whippler, but I don't think he'd be making this move if he wasn't comfortable that he could be at worst a 4th round pick. So you have 3 good examples. Did Justin Fry coach all of them throughout their career? No. Did he recruit them throughout all their in high school coming into Ohio State? No, obviously not. But I think you still would point to that and say, I worked with these guys for a year. Here was the success for the offensive line. And then you're going to have another draft day with a bunch of guys coming off very early and making millions of dollars, not tens or even a couple $100,000. So
that lemon perfect money.
Yeah, well, that's right. So, I mean, you've obviously brought this up and we've been talking about it for months now, but that part does surprise me given the opportunity that Ohio State had here, and it's not ideal, but I think that they still is not a thing where I believe Ohio State has to panic about it. Because again, if Walter Rouse is the guy, he's played a lot of good football.
And he started for 4 years at Stanford. I mean, that's pretty good.
And he's going to be healthy, and I don't think he's going to have any difficulty, learning what to do out there at left tackle. But he's just one name that we know. By May, it could be a very different circumstance. The point is, I think now it's definitive. Like, you can be the starting left tackle at Ohio State, and here's what it means. And they're still obviously not paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get people out of the portal or out of recruiting. So, yeah, it is going to force them to be more creative and maybe a different kind of evaluation. We've talked about that as well. There are still ways for Ohio State to maximize that and bring in the players that they want and still compete for championships. But yeah, I don't think either of us would have thought we'd be on January 12th and Ohio State would have no offensive linemen, because it was clear from the day the season ended that was what they would need with both of those tackles leaving.
Yeah, and you can't. I mean, they tried. It's not like they didn't go out there and give their best shot. But at this point, offensive tackle is a premium position. This is now like, the NFL. If there's 4 positions in the NFL where it's like a premium, always, it's quarterback, offensive tackle, defensive end, and cornerback. That's where the priorities are. That's where you're going to see teams bidding. Oops. I meant getting very aggressive to make sure that they get the guys they want. And so I wonder personally, like, now we're going to spin off into the ether here, but I do wonder if Ohio State's lack of NIL direction for its returning players was a part of the reason that Luke Whippler decided to make the choice. If in fact he's a 3rd or 4th round projection, again, I think he's higher than that, but it is at least worth a conversation that if he's not getting the sort of response on the NIL front that maybe he felt he deserved, that you could see that as an explanation, because this is now what you have to deal with. So if you are an Ohio State fan and you don't like Gene Smith telling you, give us money, please, perhaps it will sound better when I say it. Hey, fans, why don't you give to the Ohio State collectives? Find one that you like and throw them a nickel and just see what happens.
We were asked about that on the message board at ohiostate.rivals.com, and I know of multiple deals, at least 3, and I think he had more that Luke Whippler had. Is it NFL money? Is it $1 million? No, it was not. But I've had a number of conversations with people both inside and outside of the Ohio State program that on a per player basis for the current roster, Ohio State players are doing much better than virtually anybody else, including Georgia, including Alabama. Until they release all of their tax information, there's no way for me to definitively prove that to people. I don't think that Luke Whippler's decision was driven by not having enough NIL money. And I know of other examples on Ohio State's current roster with veterans who could have gone to the NFL that they said, hey, maybe we would like a little bit more NIL. And guess what? They got it.
Yeah.
So
isn't it just crazy? Luke Whippler signed to come to Ohio State 3 years ago, and NIL was something no one had heard of. And now he's there. He's a true junior, 3 and out, the way that it was done in the old days, back when I was a boy. And now,
well, who even had Luke Whippler being 3 and out? I mean, be honest.
This is what makes college football so crazy, right? So Luke Whippler, Matthew Jones came in the class of 2018 as the number 1 rated center in America. Harry Miller came in in 2019 as the number 1 rated center in America. Luke Whippler comes in 2020 as the number 2 rated center in America and has to play center for 3 years. Like, what? It's weird. That's all I'm saying. Like, you always got to adapt. ABC, always be Cruton. That's how I feel about it. Always be Cruton.
Yeah. No, that is the way you put it was perfect. Like, it's crazy to think about that list of 18, 19, 20 and the way they're going out in reverse order in some ways. So, yeah, I guess that's why you don't want to miss.
That's why I said it's a quagmire, because you walk into this idea of this, you think you have this solid footing, you step in and, oh crap, I'm in a mire of quag.
I'm in a mire of quag.
I mean, once you're in a mire of quag, you can't really assume anything at that point.
How did all this quag get here?
Where did this quag come from? Has anyone seen my quag brush? I've got quag all over my shoes.
It is just raining quag out there.
Oh my gosh.
Holy cow.
It's a torrential quag pour.
It feels very weird that we had an offensive line show and Bill is still taking care of the young family, as he should be.
For those asking, they did have their babe. They did have their babe. For those of you out there who are still wondering, and I saw it in a few comments. Yes, baby Landis is here. No, he didn't give the middle name Berm. Unfortunately, we tried. We sure tried.
Is there still time?
I offered him an NIL deal for the middle name, and he said, nah.
How long until the birth certificate is finalized? Can we get in there and put some whiteout on and just scribble it in, Berm?
I feel like we could probably find out how to create a fake birth certificate on the dark web. On the dark web. So I'm going to take a look. We'll take a look at it.
Wow.
He didn't even go with Malcolm, folks. He didn't even go with Malcolm. I can't wait. I can't wait till Bill's back so we can stop talking on the show for one day. It's going to be cool.
Yeah. Sorry though.
Miss you, Bill.
You're not done with me yet, bud. You're stuck.
Miss you, Bill. No, but this has been a weird week for everyone as we're covering the team, trying to figure out exactly where things are going from here. So come back over to ohiostate.rivals.com. We're going to be doing normal stuff there. We do weird stuff here, but there are some cool things coming. That's why we're in California. Very excited to put some pieces together for the next phases of the podcast. And I said it 2 weeks ago, but really grateful everyone just gives us a chance to do this, and that you step into the mire of Quag with us.
We appreciate everyone who wants to step into the mire. Maybe we shouldn't.
Maybe not everyone.
Yeah,
maybe not everyone.
No, I don't know.
There's that one guy. You know who you are. That one guy.
We'll workshop that idea. Anyway, Burma's stuck with me again. I think he's probably going to have to spend a Freaky Friday on the podcast daily with me.
Oh, Lord.
Unless we can think of something else to do before then. But I appreciate Burm for putting up with me, and I appreciate you all for listening to the podcast daily on a Thursday, January 12th. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk to you later.